Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Grief Heals. If you're willing, just let's take a breath together and remember that we're all breathing the same air. So inhaling and exhaling. Whew, just making that exhale a little bit longer than the inhale. And as I go, you can even continue to do that as I start this conversation. So today you're going to hear an episode I recorded where I talk about the triangle. And the triangle is about it's called the cognitive framework. I want to say it was originally introduced by Albert Bandura, and I've sort of adopted it as my own and really used it in every training that I do because, all right, let me give you an illustration. Today, I got a little quote from a friend who said, "Hey, here's something to think on." And she said, imagine like you're carrying a cup of coffee. She was actually sharing this thing from Facebook, but it was imagine you're carrying a cup of coffee and you get bumped. And what comes out, right? Um, no, imagine you're walking with a cup of coffee, you get bumped, and why did the coffee come out? Not what comes out. Okay, well, the coffee comes out because I got bumped, right? And she's like, no, the coffee doesn't come out because you get bumped. The coffee comes out because that's what's in the cup. And then the little thing goes on to say, if there's tea in your cup, then tea goes out. And let's be mindful to put in our cup that which we want to come out, right? So joy, gratitude, all the things. And I'm like, yeah. And it's not taking into account the things that were put into the cup even before we were born that we did not put in our own cup. Okay. So, like, each and every one of us are carrying things from our ancestors, from our lineage, and it's in our neurobiology, right? Like, this is physically in our bodies are things that we did not put there. And so the cognitive framework basically says here, you can essentially understand what a person thinks or what a person does based on what a person has learned, the stresses in a person's environment, and the resources available to said person. The way that I've made it my own, it's like, okay, look, everything, the learning that we get while we're still growing, right, in our mother's womb, that learning is all like chemical, hormonal. It's wired into our full on being. Okay. And we are absorbing emotional learning sensations in our body. We are absorbing the stress of the environment as perceived in our mom and the people around her. We are absorbing the energy of the culture as she's experiencing it. We are absorbing our lineage as it's being experienced in the body that is our home where we are developing. And we are absorbing the resources available to that initial family, the caretakers, right? And then whatever imprint we've absorbed, remember, this is before we are verbal. Okay, we're not even able to string two words together. We don't have thoughts about these things. They live as sensations in the body. Okay. So that is the way this episode is talking of, like, okay, let's examine how grief is in the context of what we've absorbed. Now, it's not coming to me fully. And I want you to know, I dreamt last night about the starting place is not the triangle. The starting place is we are made by love, for love, unto love, right? We are love. We are made as love, by love, for love. So imagine a heart. Just bring to mind a heart, color it whatever color comes in your imagination. And then that heart is surrounded by this triangle that I just mentioned. The heart is like, this is the divine imprint, heavenly mother, divine father. Like this is our true lineage and all the caretakers and even the bodies of the caretaker are of our own person, right? Wherever we grew inside this human body, that's a custodian for us, a custodian of our being. So it's not the definition of who we are. And so imagining that heart as the one in us who is utterly protected by divine parents, that we are whole, complete. And there is this sense in which this triangle is built around us. And imagine a heart on the outside of that triangle. And these two hearts coming back, remembering one another. And I think this is the process of grief, as I see it, is the heart that we are and the heart that God is coming back in oneness, and that we are always being brought back to love. This is the way I'm imagining it. So I'm inviting you to like, share, rate, review the podcast, share it with a friend. Like, let's make this conversation, this love conversation bigger. Will you help me grow this conversation around grief and change the framework around grief, that it is something that is for the healing of ourselves, each other, and the whole wide world? And with that introduction, may you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to another episode of Grief Heals, the podcast where we explore how it is that grief heals us with our relationship with ourselves, with one another, and our whole wide world. I am your host, Lisa Michelle Zega, and I am excited to have another conversation. Hello. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I am going to share I got this vision when I was in the triangle. Oh, I love being a human. I got this vision when I was in the shower of what to speak on for this episode. And what I'm going to speak about is a triangle. I'm going to speak about a triangle that I think illustrates the way that I think about grief. So, all right, before we begin, let's just go ahead and feel into where we are, right? So let yourself arrive in your space, whether you're in your car, you're on a walk, wherever you are. Find yourself. Notice where your feet are. Notice how your feet are. Notice your sit bones, your whole pelvic region, and just let yourself feel into that area. How about your back and your shoulders? Just notice. And just become aware of the energy around you, like so that you can even sense into the space between the top of your head and the next object or, space in front of you. So I'm thinking about the ceiling over my head, and without looking up, I can intuit like the space between me and that ceiling. And then noticing your back and the space between you and the object behind you, the wall behind you, whatever it is, tree, person. And just notice how you can actually kind of feel into the distance, the space, without even looking. All right, just let yourself get a little bit more comfortable, and let's take a breath, recognizing we breathe the same air. Okay, so I want you to imagine yourself as How would we say this? Like, just imagine yourself being birthed by the divine, right? Like, thought up by the divine, imagined by the divine, brought into existence. And in the image of love, right? Like, just in the fullness of who you are. Okay. Now, I don't really have a symbol for that, but let's just imagine that being that is you. Now picture yourself in a triangle. Okay. So can you see it? Just like this little dot that is perfect, and then a triangle around this dot. And I want you to imagine that the way that I think about grief, right? Anything that you have loved and lost, anything you have needed as a being made for love that you did not receive, right? That grief lives in these areas. So now imagine here you are, this little dot of perfection, and you are in a triangle. And whatever you absorb through your relationships, right? That is going to hold some of your grief. Now, on the other, what do we call it, side of the triangle, whatever you absorb in terms of stress in your environment, that is going to hold elements of your grief. Whatever, now the base of the triangle, whatever you absorb as your resources is going to also hold pockets of your grief. Because remember, grief is something that you had and you lost, or something that you needed as a being made by love for love, right? Like love is your divine parent and love is your birthright and love is who you are. So anything that doesn't match that frequency of love is also going to hold your grief. Okay, so can you see it? Here you are, this little dot of love perfection. You're surrounded by this triangle. Now imagine your first triangle is what you're absorbing in your mother's womb, right? So whatever your mom is learning, whatever your mom is believing about life and how life works, if mom is experiencing that life is not fair, life is hard, people do you wrong, I'm not lovable, whatever it is, and all the cortisol and all the different things in mom's body, right? You, little baby one, are also absorbing. And whatever stress is being experienced in the environment where mom is, you are absorbing. And whatever resources mom has or does not have, you are also absorbing. And so what you need, maybe the things that you need that you're not getting all of it, right? Because that's basically how it works. We don't get everything that we need on one level. There's another thinking in my brain, but let's just stay there. And then there are things that you actually don't need for your optimal development that you are also receiving. Okay, so imagine that mom is going through a really difficult time, that maybe there's trouble in the marriage, that maybe there are financial constraints, that maybe mom doesn't know how things are going to work out. Maybe she's fighting with her own mom. Maybe she's fighting with her partner or her spouse. Maybe she doesn't know how she's going to take care of baby inside of her. Maybe her own resources, like her emotional resources, how she navigates her own internal nervous system is maybe she doesn't know how to navigate that area of life. Maybe her financial resources are low or depleted or in danger. Maybe her spiritual resources, her sense of hope for a different future than the future she has right now, whatever those resources are or are not, you are absorbing. Okay. So you start, like, you come and it breaks down in terms of being able to say it all linearly. So just use your imagination, but imagine yourself as this one who is complete, in love, by love, for love, designed by love, gifted life by love, love being your birthright, your actual heavenly parent is love. And then all these things that you absorb in your wee little bitty triangle. And the things that you're absorbing are creating an emotional imprint in your physical body, in your nervous system. So guess what? Fast forward, now you're 2, you're 3, you're beginning to form sentences, you're beginning to think and make story around your life, your experience. Well, guess what your story is built around? It is built around this emotional imprint that you've absorbed through your relationships, what you've absorbed as far as how the world works, through the stress you've absorbed, through the resources you've absorbed. And now, as you go through your little life, I'm picturing you as this little toddler, and you're adding layers to this triangle, right? So you might be adding some resources, and there may be stress added or taken away, and you're adding new information. And then that triangle grows and layers as you grow and layer. Okay. Now, grief is our response to loss, and you're not just building individual messages, you are actually absorbing cultural messages. So let's just say the color of your skin is not the predominant color or way color of skin, but the way that the predominant society around you is not valuing and celebrating you, right? In your own skin tone. Or let's say your economic status is not valued and elevated and celebrated by the culture around you. You will then begin to put a story around, like layered onto your little triangle, of what this means about you. And that's not because you are, it's not even like a willful story, like, here, let me sit down and design the story for my life that I want to live from. Remember, it started as this emotional imprint in your body. So when it comes to grief, like whatever happens in your life, you lose your husband, right? You wake up to your husband who is no longer breathing. Yes, you will obviously grieve the loss of your husband. You will experience this loss in your very body, and you will respond to this loss. And you will likely respond from the way that you have learned to see life through this triangle. And it will also, this is what happens with grief, it brings up other ungrieved grief we've been carrying, loss we've been carrying that we have not given love to. Like, grief is the invitation, bring love to this place that needs love, right? And so when you are experiencing whatever loss it is, grief will say, bring love here. But it's like a bunch of kids that are hungry, and they hear, oh my gosh, food is here, food is here, food is here. And they come running. Oh, I want some, mommy, can I have some? Can I have some, daddy? Feed me. So your losses that have needed love and have wanted love and have been held in your body waiting for love will come and take the invitation that your grief brings, saying, bring love here, and other losses that you're not even aware you're carrying, right? Like, can you imagine having a house full of kids that you don't know are there, and you go to offer your little one food, and little baby hands are banging on the door saying, let me in, let me in, let me in, feed me, feed me. That is the way it works when we're grieving. We are carrying losses that we are not aware of, and they will make themselves known and say, feed me, feed me, feed me. And so you might be asking, because depending on how fresh your loss is, you might be asking, I don't even know what that means. I don't even know where to begin. My life feels flat, devastated. I am in the rubble of my life. Bringing love there is as simple. The beginning is just to give it attention. And if you can, even give it attention with enthusiasm. What do I mean by that? I see you. I see that you're here, and you get to be here in the fullness of the devastation you feel. Thank you. Thank you, precious heart, precious body, for feeling the devastation that you're experiencing right now, the unique way that you feel it. You're the only one who could feel what I'm feeling right now, the way that I'm feeling it. You're the only one who could respond exactly how you're responding. And that's no matter how you're responding. Are you just stuffing your face full of food, mindlessly watching TV, numb on the inside? Awesome. You're the only one who can do this exactly this way. And just bringing attention to your precious self, doing whatever you're doing, feeling however you're feeling. And your brain may be telling you all kinds of things. I can't do that. What is she saying? What in the world? None of this makes sense. And then saying all the things that it will mean if you give yourself attention and permission to be loved right where you are, exactly how you are, with nothing needing to change. Here's what happens when we condemn ourselves. I should be further along. I shouldn't be feeling this way anymore. I shouldn't be feeling so numb inside. I should be able to smile from a genuine place when someone smiles. I should not want to scream, whatever it is. That is a way of reject. Every time you should on yourself and you should on your grief, you are rejecting parts of you. And grief's purpose, in the way that I see it, is that all the parts of you that have been left behind, fragmented, ignored, dismissed, get to be loved exactly where they are, exactly how they are, celebrated exactly how you are, without anything needing to change. I'm just going to say that giving yourself permission to name, to recognize, I am grieving. I've not done this before. And I'm just going to give myself attention and notice how it is that I am doing this. How am I feeling? What are the sensations in my body? What am I doing with my time without judgment? All compassion is seeing whatever you see without judgment. This is the beginning of remembering, of coming home to yourself. Remember how we started the triangle with that dot of perfection made by love, in love, for love? That dot is you, and your grief is calling you to remember. And then to recognize all this grief that has been caught in this triangle, because you are made by love, in love, and for love. And can we start giving attention to ourselves without judgment and simply celebrating from the heart that you are. You are. And you get to be loved exactly as you are. That's all I've got today. I'm heading off for a very big 5-6 days, and I'll be back with you again next week. So could we take a breath together? Inhaling, exhaling. If you're up for it, arms out. If you are driving, just experience that you are being wrapped up energetically, arms together, held, and that what you are holding is also held. And just notice that we can hold and be held at one and the same time. Mwah! Until next week, I love you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Grief Heals with Lisa Michelle Zega. The podcast is produced by me, Eric Simpson, in association with Jump Up and Down Productions. Music by Ken Dalian, Drunken Nights to Sunday Mornings, and Stefan Carlin, A Calming Ocean, A Common Notion. If you would like more information about the work Lisa does, point your browsers to legityou.com. That's LEGITYOU. Lisa can also be reached at Lisa Michelle at legityou.com. This has been a Jump Up and Down production.